Hello, Awesome Soul here, and as you can see by the title, we have some rather interesting things lined up for today's video. But real quick, before we get into that, I would like to plug another video I did that I'm actually rather proud of. A lot of effort went into this video, and I mean, take a look at this thumbnail. This thing alone took me about an hour to do. And yes, as you can guess by the thumbnail, this is for my second channel, my Pokemon channel. Now, I know most of you are here for Robocraft and not Pokemon, that's why I do have a second channel, so it's not stuck on this channel. But even if you don't like Pokemon, I would recommend you actually check out this video, because in it I kind of use Pokemon as a jumping off point to go into sort of Japanese folklore and talk about inspirations from different monsters from the many stories they have throughout their history. So if you do enjoy Pokemon content, I would highly recommend you check it out and subscribe to the channel, but even if you don't like Pokemon content, I would be really grateful if you checked it out as well. You'll probably learn something new. Thank you for patiently waiting, but now we can go into the actual news. Starting off, we have somebody asking Rick on Twitter what their opinions are on mega insect legs. Will the Robocraft community ever get such an amazing part? And his rather simple response is that yes, he is working on it. Or rather, it's on his list of things to do. So probably that means there's a little bit of work into it, maybe some general concepting, but nothing really that solid. So we'll see it, but we'll probably not be seeing it for a few updates. As in one of the more recent live streams they did, they talked about having another weapon in the works that Rick was quoted as saying was much cooler than a boring old mortar, or something along those lines. And he seemed rather excited about it, so my best guess is that probably going to be one of the next things we see. Which is cool, because the more brand new parts we get that aren't just simple downsizes of existing parts, the better. But yes, what do I think of the possible inclusion of mega insect legs? Well, as I'm sure a lot of you know, I used to be an insect main. That was my main method of movement. They've kind of made a little bit of a comeback as of late, but they still need a lot of work, mainly in their control department and physics department. If you've ever had the misfortune of trying to climb a steep cliff, you'll know that they're not the greatest climbers, at least when it comes to trying to get up and over the cliff. Climbing up is the easy part, but trying to get back onto the level flat ground, you'll more often than not end up on your back. So before we get the mega insect leg, we're going to need to get a mega rework to the physics. But once the physics actually work properly, then yes, mega insect legs are going to be phenomenal. The other thing we have is a fix to the Gyro Mortar. This is something that Mark talked about a little bit, and I did talk briefly about this in the live stream that I did recently. But for those who missed that or didn't watch the replay of it, they are preparing a hotfix to eliminate the Gyro Mortar splash damage issue. This is basically when users shoot parts of their own bot to trigger the explosion for nearby enemies. So all those canister builds with the mortar on the inside of the bot, basically acting as a big AoE Tesla, those are not going to work anymore. However, I honestly never really had a problem with them. They're more gimmicky than actually useful, so I don't know why they're so quick to jump on this. Because having the mortar itself, obviously, costs a decent amount of CPU, and then trying to protect the mortar all the way around inside of a bot costs an insane amount of CPU. So, more often than not, you'd probably be better going off with Tesla, and that would drastically cut your CPU usage, also allowing you to use other weapons a lot easier. The other option is just simply going for the Ion Distorter. And even then, you would have a fair bit more range than the Gyro Mortar close range splash. So I don't know, like I said, it's not very useful to begin with, so them removing it isn't really that big of a problem, because I kind of played around with it a little bit, but besides that, just too gimmicky for me. What do you guys think though? Is this the right move, or do you think they're making the wrong choice here? Now, I would also like to take this opportunity to talk a little little about my opinions on the mortar itself. So after playing around with it for a little bit, I have to say it's probably my least favorite weapon in the game. That's not to say it's powerful, it is, but it's not very consistent. And as a player trying to use it, it's just not all that fun to use. It's satisfying when you get a hit, but those are very, very rare. More often than not, you're just gonna send out a huge amount of shells that just hit the ground, not really hit anything else. On top of that, the range of this thing is quite pitiful, to be rather honest. There have been times where I've seen an enemy, and I'm like, you know, he's not really that far away, so let's get to the optimal firing arc, for those that don't know, that's 45 degrees, and try and hit them. And even then, it falls short. So what I would recommend doing is kind of a rework to this, and it's a rather simple rework as well, though of course implementing the visual aspect of it might be somewhat tricky, and that is increase the power usage of the weapon, but when you have it selected, add a holographic aiming assist to it. So when you're aiming it, it will shoot out a holographic beam that will tell you exactly where your projectile is going to hit, and it will also show you the splash area when it actually impacts onto the ground. Obviously though, you're going to still have to lead your shot, because everything else is going to stay the same. The damage, firing speed, etc. Though what could be added to is a range buff. That would be rather helpful. So perhaps make the range fire a fair bit longer at the 45-degree angle, and at the 10-degree angle, it will still go at the range that it is now. But the reason I say it needs to have more power usage per shot is because I feel the fact that it's so low right now is simply due to you having to fire so many projectiles before you get a proper hit. Essentially firing out dummy projectiles to basically seek out how far you need to aim. But if you have this holographic aiming assist, then it's a lot easier and also more fun. And I say more fun because you're not going to be missing all those shots. Basically feeling around in the dark essentially to try and figure out where your projectiles are going to hit before finally getting to the right area, and by that time the enemy has either been killed by a teammate or they've left the effective range of the mortar. But once more, I ask, what are your opinions on all of this? I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about the mortar. Some people seem to love it, while others seem to hate it. And finally, from there, we come to the last tweet. This is somewhat of an older one, but I am throwing it in here because some people probably missed it. Although judging by the likes on this thing, I'd say a fair few of you saw it. So, Mark Simons, the CEO of FreeJam, has tweeted out that they are thinking of doing Reconnect next in Robocraft. Now, does this mean Reconnect is going to come in the next update, or are they just going to start work on it? But that would conflict with other times they've said that they're still constantly working on it as they go. So maybe they took a break from it and now they're coming back to it? I really don't know here. But yeah, not much else to say on the matter. Reconnect is a very, very important feature that for some odd reason has yet to be implemented. But anyways guys, that will do it for today's episode. If you still haven't checked out the video I talked about earlier, it's on the end card somewhere, probably at the top. But with that, I of course have been the Awesome Soul. I thank you all so very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.